every time anybody catches me with a book in my hands, there seems to be this inordinate curiosity about what I'm reading. So I just want to tell you up front, I do read the comments every morning. But this is called Reclaiming Prophetic Witness. And it's by Paul Razor, a colleague. And it's available, I think, through Amazon, but also through the bookstore. The subtitle is Liberal Religion in the Public Square, and I highly recommend it to all of us because we share this ministry, and nothing good happens without both professional ministry and vibrant lay leadership. So I thank you for sharing this ministry. A few weeks ago, I had a great privilege to have lunch with some Unitarian Universalists. As you can imagine, when two or more of us are gathered, it eventually turns towards theology of some kind, or the lack thereof. And it was a very vibrant and wonderful and fun lunch. But I don't remember the circumstances, but towards the end of it, post-dessert, we're wrapping up, I found an occasion to say that I personally define myself as an atheist and a mystic Christian. And, I can almost feel the heads. What the hell did he just say? And I said, well, it would take too long to explain this as we're paying our tabs and getting out of here. But I thought as I was writing this reflection for this morning that I would include a little bit of an explanation of that, because the title of my reflection is called Being Spiritually Fearless, and I do honestly believe that is one of the two major obligations we have as Unitarian Universalists. One is to become amazingly fearless in our spiritualities. And so I will declare that I find my courage, my fearlessness in the application of this faith tradition in science. Now, when I say atheist, I don't mean that I'm pretending to have a clue about how all this works out. And I think a lot of us use the term erroneously, like we know exactly what's going on and anybody doesn't think like this is an idiot. Well, I'm sorry. I know too much about science to ever come before you and say, I know how this is going to turn out. Because I don't. But I do find this universe to be an unfathomable mystery. But we have searched for this thing we describe as God, big G, little g, ever since our human time here on earth began. And we've walked the earth by day, we've stared out into the darkened sky by night, we have stared into our campfires and our chalices. Oh, by the way, let me stop for just a second. I am so tickled with this new seating that I can't even, and that you kept it since last time I was here. And I, seriously, the first time we did this, I thought it would be kind of maybe a little Buddhist thing, we just angled the little feng shui. But the second service last time, standing here, well, it looks like a chalice with the little base back there against the wall, and then the stem through here, this beautiful cup of, and with the choir this morning, there was like 20 people sitting in the cup, filling up the chalice. So for those of you courageous enough to come up and be a part of the actual cup of the chalice, I thank you. It makes me feel very comfortable and very loved. But we have stared into our campfires and our chalices, and we have pondered the possibilities of our relationship with this earth and the great beyond. And our search for this God, big G, little g, has taken us in a zillion different directions. Some have sought God in our sacred texts, others in the stars. Some have sought God in the past, others in the present, some in the future. We've looked everywhere, even through our telescopes and our microscopes. And I want to share with you a little an anecdote. In my other life, I'm an actor, and so I've done a lot of work here in Fort Worth, Stage West. And I remember like 25 years ago, doing the Christmas mysteries. If you don't know what those are mystery plays written in the Renaissance, and they're about the Old Testament from Genesis all the way through the death of Christ. And in our production at Stage West, I got to play God. And I've always liked to think that was typecasting. So we do that. We do the first act, And as the second half, and if you've ever been to Stage West, the old Stage West over by TCU, it was in the round, so we entered from everywhere. And, but there was an older woman, of course at the time, I'm like 45, so that was like 20 years ago. But, so this older woman who was in a wheelchair, could have been only 80, but she seemed ancient to me at the time. She got caught with her person helping her get back into the theater to her seat after the intermission, the dessert and stuff that they did. And so she had to freeze right there in the entrance of the ballroom, and I'm in that ballroom with a couple of other actors who are entering from everywhere to start the second half. So she's sitting there, and she's smiling, I smile back, and the lights are starting to go dim, and all of a sudden I feel this old bony hand grab my hand. And I look back at her, and she looked up at me, and she said, "I sure hope God looks like you." And I looked at her, and I said, "What a wonderful thing to say. And you know what? I hope so too, because I'm going to need him to cut me some slack." Anyway, she started giggling, and I started laughing, and the stage manager just show to do. But I almost couldn't do the second half of the show because I remember, as a kid growing up, in Catholic schools, God was everywhere and in everything. God was life and God was love. But somehow God also manifested itself as a white, bald-headed guy with a beard peering at me from behind a cloud. I could be God. Just easy. So back to more serious matters. In the 4th century, Augustine wrote in the Latin, "Si comprendis, non est Deus." If you think you understand or found God, got news for you, it's not God you're talking about. But having grown up here in Texas, and especially now serving the church in Oak Cliff, I followed the progress of the superconductor super collider. And of course now, before I got to Oak Cliff, their membership and fortunes rose and fell with the success and ultimate failure of that project. And I have a theory about why that happened, by the way, and I'll share it in a second. But all that was left was a massive underground tunnel to nowhere. And the collider's purpose was to accelerate protons to a speed where somehow they could create the original Big Bang, but at a smaller scale. And by doing that, they could film it and study it and begin to know the secrets. Right? So my theory is that once the legislature in Texas and the legislature beyond, but especially the legislature and the governor of Texas, realized that this was happening outside of Waxahachie in the Bible Belt, the last thing they wanted was to prove that God was not a white guy floating on a cloud, or that Noah took dinosaurs with him on the ark, was to have that discovery take place in Texas. I don't know if that's true or not, but it's just the only thing that makes sense to me. But what's important about the superconductor supercollider is that it has actually been built, and it's in Europe. And it's under the Swiss Alps. And it is called the Hadron Collider, and it is coordinated under the acronym CERN, C-E-R-N. It's in Geneva. It's been declared a huge success, and scientists actually believe that they've confirmed the Higgs boson, or the God particle. The God particle. It appears to give matter mass and to hold the physical fabric of the universe together. Now, I can't tell you how tickled I am about that. First of all, having escaped or outgrown my Catholic early education, but also as an actor, because they haven't actually seen the Higgs boson. They think they've proved it by what they haven't seen. And here's the really incredible part, is they think it has a pulse. Now, if you're an actor, you know that all of prose, especially Shakespeare, is based on iambic pentameter, which is based on the pulse or the beat of the human heart. To be or not to be, that is the question. And that all the signposts of how to interpret Shakespeare's work are embodied in the texture and nature of the limping pairs of feet, or the iambic pentameter. And so the idea that the smallest thing in the universe, not the biggest thing, the all-knowing, all-powerful super thing that we would talk about, the teeny tiniest thing, might actually be what we have been searching for, just makes me grin and giggle. And I think, now that's something I can really get behind. But at the very least, because it can't be the end point of what we're going to find, but at the very least, it is a key to understanding why there is diversity and life in the universe to begin with. It may be the first of many particles that will be found now, particles that will point to new and deeper ideas about the nature of reality, giving us a richer understanding of the dark matter that provides the gravitational scaffolding of galaxies and us, and maybe, just maybe, pushing us closer to knowing the possibilities of God. Big G, little g, makes no difference to me. I'm in, because this is heady stuff. But as our own 20th century theologian James Luther Adams has always said, revelation is not sealed. The universe is still revealing itself to us. God, or whatever you want to call it, is still revealing itself to us. And yet, no matter how far we are and how the 13.8 billion light years, whatever this may be, obviously, we're still at the birthplace of this journey. This is the morning of what we could possibly know about what we are and what we are doing. The challenge for us is, it seems to me, and it's always been, to create a religion that can withstand the new truths as they are revealed to us, and the new truths as they are revealed to us in the growth of our own curiosity, our own capacity to understand where to look next. Our talents are expanding too with the universe. And so we all, of course, we haven't always been good at this. We've had to apologize to Galileo and Copernicus. But one of the great theatrical artists or writers, Ibsen, once said that before a majority of people can know something to be true, let me repeat that, before a majority of people can know something to be true, one of us must know it. So you would think we would have a little more courtesy towards each other's curiosity than we're currently displaying. We do not know how this turns out. And it seems to me the other part of that equation is that our faith must be marked by radical trust. There was a time 2 years ago when I'm laying on that gurney, truly brushing up against the curtain between this existence and not, and it was for about 2 hours. And I have to tell you that the one thing I knew in that moment was that my only obligation was to let go and trust that whatever happens next is as it is supposed to be. So I was asking myself as a minister in my church, as a church, and the people that I come to share this journey with, how are we doing? How are we doing on that trust? Whatever we know or don't know, the idea of loving this life, loving this love, loving this existence with all our heart, mind, and soul, and each other as ourselves, is the supreme commandment, regardless of how we come to think we know the mystery. Part 2. A 3-year scan of a tiny, tiny portion of the sky with the BICEP 2 telescope at the South Pole has detected evidence of the universe's initial faster-than-light growth spurt. And according to scientists, this recent discovery of light wave patterns or gravitational waves, now dubbed Kovacs ripples, that's not Ernie Kovacs, it's just Kovacs ripples, I don't know who that is, but they have the scientists both jubilant and cautious, because they say it is not only possible but extremely likely that this is a credible indication that a rapid spurt happened, and confirming this inflation would mean that the universe that we see is nearly 13.8 billion light years beyond us, and containing hundreds of billions of galaxies would be only an infinitesimal patch in a larger cosmos whose extent, architecture, and fate are unknowable. That no matter what happens, it is so much beyond our own universe that there might be other universes bubbling into frothy eternity like pasta water boiling out of a pot. So in our own universe, it would serve as a window into the forces operating at energies forever beyond the reach of our particle accelerators. And it would yield new insights into gravity itself, which, according to our other great Unitarian Universalist, Albert Einstein, or Unitarian, his theory of general relativity, would actually reshuffle our very concepts of space and time. It's breathtaking to me. Absolutely breathtaking to me to come face to face with the knowledge of how much I will never know about this journey that I find myself in. But I believe very strongly that we must, for the sake of our individual and collective sanity, that we must understand that we are still at the very beginning of, at the very morning of creation, because our life is the only space-time continuum that we have any say over. How we live in the moment, how we love in the moment, how we honor the life we've been given. That's the only thing we have control over. And that will eventually be taken away as well. Kurt Vonnegut. And I asked for a show of hands earlier. Who knows who Kurt Vonnegut was? God bless you. Sometimes I feel so old. Kurt Vonnegut once asked and answered his own question. And the question was, what should young people do with their lives today? And his answer was, many things, obviously, but the most daring thing, all caps, the most daring thing that young people could do today would be to create stable communities in which the terrible disease of loneliness can be cured. The rest of it we have no control over. But this we could do. This we could do. We could create communities where the horrible disease of loneliness can be cured. And that would have to make this life enough. No matter where we might be on this human timeline, seriously, we are forever young. In stable communities, and I keep wondering, how does that happen? Well, it happens with love. I mean, true love. Someone said the problem with Unitarianism is that we don't have hell. We can't scare everyone into submission. We certainly can't scare them into emptying their wallets at the fund drives to buy a seat at the table in heaven. But I really think this should be our strongest strength, our greatest asset. Saint Therese of Lisieux was a Carmelite nun in the 1800s in France. And she was quoted as saying that although she believed in hell, she believed it was empty. Because the Jesus of our understanding could take no pleasure in knowing that anybody was burning in the fires of eternal damnation. Of course, prior to that, Tertullian, the great white, bald Christian writer, with way too much influence, he predicted that one of the chief joys of heaven would be thinking about the torments of the sinners in hell. Have you ever wondered where the Left Behind series comes from? Tertullian did it! Yay! No. Anyway, as more and more churches crack, fracture, split apart over the gory details of our human lives, as they wrestle with their antique attitudes about the roles of women, about sexual orientation, and all the other parochial notions about life itself, we have an opportunity to stand in the warm promise of an inclusive community. Not an exclusive one, an inclusive community. And that we stand on the bedrock foundations of freedom of assembly, freedom of religion, and freedom of speech. Freedom's hard earned, and won with a dear price. in the decades before us. And finding this religion, finding this church, Westside, in this village, cannot be the end of the journey, any more than making up or getting married is the summation or end game of our lives. It is the beginning of a new and exciting way of living. This is where the spiritual adventure begins, if we are fearless. This is where the good stuff starts. It is my hope that we will find the way to always be able to not only say, but be the church that we claim to be. And that our religion truly believes in the sanctity of conscience, the teaching of tolerance, the obligations of compassion, the expressions of gratitude, the excitement of curiosity, and the joy of hospitality, and the nurturing of our children, that we will always allow each other to name the possibilities of God, big G, little g, for ourselves, and that we will be allowed to develop our own relationships with the sacred, or the divine, or the universe, and do so on our own terms. Because we come together on Sunday mornings to worship because this faith and this church stands against superstition and fear. It is open to women and men of whatever race, color, sex, sexual orientation, or place of origin, because it has a free pulpit and a free pew. But that our children can come and learn of a religion that stands for joy, comfort, gratitude, love, and service, and not be saddled with some false and enduring guilt. Because this is a place for the religiously displaced who refuse to sacrifice their integrity for community, and who come as free thinkers to work out their own spiritual journeys without ever being judged. So we condemn no one to hell, but we seek instead to find the goodness of love, the goodness that we crave, the healing of loneliness, and create heaven here on earth. May this always be our prayer together. Amen. If you would please now rise in body and your spirit. We're going to sing our closing hymn number 301. Touch the earth. Only going to do the first 3 verses.